Hello, good morning, and welcome to Unacademy IAS, a one stop destination for all the English medium civil services aspirants. This is Shyam Sir here, taking up the Hindu newspaper analysis for 26th December 2025. Now, before I start the session, please do let me know that I'm audible and visible for all of you. Those present in the session, please give the confirmation. Am I audible and visible? Done. Thanks a lot. Let's start. So, in today's session, I've taken a total of 10 articles, all of them from the daily edition of Hindu newspaper. The discussion will cover the articles from different subjects such as polity, economics, IR, SNT, etc., which will help you answer the questions in the prelims as well as in the mains examination. If you're liking the initiative, do not forget to hit the like button. If you are yet to join our YouTube channel, kindly do it right now. Now, before I start the session, here is a very important announcement. And this is for those who are appearing for the Civil Services Exam 2026 and 2027. Right now, all our courses are available at a discount of 55%. Whatever is the price displayed in the website, use the code IAS English, you will receive the discount. And not just this, you also become eligible for double validity. That is, you purchase a course for 6 months, we are going to provide additional 6 months free of cost. You purchase for 9 months plus 9 months, you purchase for 12 months, additional 12 months. Those who are interested in enrolling, do check out the details by clicking on the link provided in the description. Now, let me begin the discussion. First, very important article, India's foreign policy in the year 2025. What has been the overall performance of India's foreign policy in this particular year? As we move towards end of the year, there is an evaluation of how India has performed in terms of its relations with other countries. Let's understand this using this particular mind map. At the center of it, here is India. India is surrounded by multiple trading partners. The trading partners or coalition partners, whatever you want to call it. On one side, we have USA, we have relations with China, Russia, West Asian countries, as well as other neighboring countries. How India's foreign policy has performed in 2025, let's understand. In the context of USA, with the new administration, with Mr. Donald Trump becoming the president for the second term, we expected normalization or better movement in terms of normalization of the relations with USA. Because if you remember, when Mr. Donald Trump was the president back in 2016 and 2020, during his first term, he had raised certain concerns regarding India's policies. For example, restrictions imposed by government of India in terms of dairy imports, restrictions over data localization norms, etc. So different measures were raised as a concern, and they were basically arguing that these kind of measures or policies would hurt US businesses. And that is the precise reason during his first term, Mr. Donald Trump withdrew the status of generalized system of preferences that USA had given to India. What is this generalized system of preferences? Essentially, a developed country, I repeat, a developed country will provide certain exemptions in terms of tariffs. That is, certain exports from a developing country would be identified. These particular tariffs would be reduced or eliminated in order to promote the trade between a developed as well as a developing country. So during the first term, there were different points of friction, and there were certain countermeasures in the form of withdrawal of GSP, etc., that were implemented by USA. Now, in the second term or in the second office or second time in the office of Mr. Donald Trump, we expected the relations to improve. What has actually happened in the last 1 year, that is in the year 2025, it has actually taken the relations between India and USA further down the line. That is, the relations have deteriorated. For example, in the context of trade relations, the president of USA announced 25% tariffs, one of the highest that was imposed by USA on its trading partners. Then, after a week in July, additional 25% was announced. 25% more tariff was announced, taking the total tariffs to 50% on many of India's exports. Is it the only factor of concern? No. It's been multiple months since the trade negotiations have started between India and USA. Multiple rounds of negotiations have been completed. Initially, the argument was within a couple of weeks, the trade agreement would be signed. And the argument was we will have a comprehensive, not just covering the only the goods trading or only the merchandise and the services. There will be a comprehensive trade agreement. But it's been multiple months since the announcement, and as of now, there is no end in sight regarding the trade agreement. Absolutely no end in sight. And this has been one of the reasons why a lot of foreign investors are jittery. A lot of foreign investors are concerned and worried about investing in India. And a lot of the investments is flowing out of India in recent months. So the second concern is the trade agreement. What about the third concern? The security relationship. The security relationship. India has imports or important defense imports coming from Russia. And we also import a lot of these equipments from USA as well. And in recent times, USA has been targeting India in order to ensure that the funds will not flow to Russia, which they argue that they are using the funds to fight war in Ukraine. And they have basically targeted the oil imports or the crude imports from Russia done by India. And this has been one of the point of frictions between India as well as USA. This is the third very important point of concern. So I hope you understand this. Back in 2024, what were the relations between India and USA? Compared to that, in 2025, the relations have taken a hit. And are these the only concerns? No. In recent times, the president of USA had made a revamp, has announced changes to the H-1B policy, H-1B visa policy. As a result of this, a lot of skilled labor which could have moved to USA will be affected. That is specifically from India. And the labor that moves from India to USA is also one of the very important sources of remittances. Please remember, a very important source of remittances. India, according to the World Bank report, is the highest recipient, sorry, the highest recipient of inward remittances for the last couple of years. So the inward remittances would also be hurt. So this is basically what has happened in the last 1 year in the context of India and USA. What about India and China? If you want to understand what is happening right now, just go back a couple of years. That is back in the year 2020. Galwan Valley clashes between India and China. And that actually led to deterioration of the bilateral relations between India and China. And post that, the heads of both the countries have met. To a certain extent, right, there has been calming off or cooling off these particular frictions that used to happen in the border regions. But despite having said so, or despite having achieved all of this, there are certain concerns in the context of India-China relations. For example, China alleges that India has been imposing a lot of restrictions which are affecting investments coming from China or Chinese companies in India. For example, the FDI policy of Government of India, or for that matter, the quality control orders announced by different ministries in India. This is one issue. This is raised by the government of China. And on the other side, the government of India simply says, look at the policies which are being followed by the Chinese authorities. We want to import, let's say, specialty fertilizers from China. We want to import specialty fertilizer. We want to import permanent magnets. Against all of this, lot of restrictions have been imposed by the Chinese authorities in recent times. And this is actually hurting. It is affecting economic activities in India along with many other countries. This is in the context of trade. Now in the context of security, that is, let's say the visa issues. In recent times, no doubt, the border frictions between both of the countries have gone down. There is absolutely no doubt regarding that. But look at the visa issue. Very recently, multiple individuals who have Indian visas or Indian passports, not visas, passports, who have traveled through China have been stopped because they have been issued the visas, they have been issued the passport where it is mentioned that their residents, they are born in Arunachal Pradesh. So this particular issue has been flaring up again and again. So these are certain very important issues that have arisen between India and China in this particular year. Now, in the context of India and Russia, what has been happening in this particular year? During this particular time period, the crude oil imports which have come into India from Russia, no doubt, have come down. With the targeting done by USA, higher tariffs announced because we are importing the Russian crude oil, no doubt, the import of crude oil from Russia has come down. But at the same point of time, imports have not yet been eliminated. Please remember, imports are coming, point number one. Point number two, defense relations coexist. But here is a concern. Very recently, the president of USA, Mr. Putin, visited India. During this particular visit, we expected a lot of agreements in the context of defense, transfer of technology, etc. We expected a lot of agreements. But what actually happened was the agreements were majorly signed. The talks were majorly surrounding the concept of trade relations between India and Russia. For example, the most of the discussion was surrounding the concept of bilateral trade, increasing the bilateral trade to more than $100 billion by 2030, which is around $68 to $69 billion. The establishment of a joint venture between Indian companies as well as a Russian company to set up a fertilizer company in Russia, which will ensure continuous supply of fertilizer to India, etc. So the discussion was mainly surrounding the concept of trade relations, and very little was discussed in the context of defense relations. Very little agreements were not signed between India and China promoting the defense relations. This is between India and Russia. What about India and West Asia? Very recently, the Prime Minister of India visited Jordan, one of the countries in this particular region. Prime Minister also visited Oman, right? One more very important country. And these countries are important, especially Oman for that matter, is important because in the context of these countries, the geological presence of these particular countries, these are present in West Asia. For example, Jordan. Jordan geographically is very close to the, right, let's say disputed region, or let's say the region where a lot of crisis is happening right now. The Gaza, Palestine as well as Israel issue. So that is where India's importance, or India's, right, let's say the tour or the Prime Minister's visit is important. In addition to this, the visit to Oman is also important for a simple reason. We have signed a comprehensive economic partnership agreement, SEPA. Please remember, we have signed a SEPA with Oman. And as a result of this particular SEPA, India's skilled labor is expected to move, right? More movement of skilled labor is expected to happen in this particular region now, right? And the bilateral trade is also expected to be boosted because of these agreements. So in the context of West Asia, the recent trips, the role of India in the context of the crisis that is happening in the Middle East, right, is also important. So these are certain points in the context of India and West Asia that you need to remember. Now, India as well as the neighbors in the Asian region, neighbors. If you see, in case of the neighboring countries, on one side we have Pakistan, on the other side we have Nepal, we have, right, Bhutan, we have Bangladesh. In the context of relations of India with these neighboring countries, with Pakistan as well as Bangladesh, the relations have soared. Relations have taken a bad turn. In recent times, for example, the interim government in Bangladesh every now and then keeps on raising the issue of, right, let's say the former Prime Minister being present in India. India not handing over the former Prime Minister of Bangladesh for prosecution or for basically the other issues that the government of Bangladesh wants to take up. And not only that, various incidences that are happening in Bangladesh, generally the blame is put on India. That's the reason the relations between India and Bangladesh have taken a hit in recent times. What about India and Pakistan relations? Right, not to forget the Pahalgam terrorist attack and India's retaliation in the form of Operation Sindoor, etc. So the 2025 has seen a lot of these particular events which have basically brought in the foreign policy into the central stage. But the article basically okay, the article basically says that in recent 1 year or in the last 1 year, the foreign policy has played a very important role, but it has not been able to make huge gains that were expected. The gains that we expected from the foreign policy, we were not able to achieve these particular gains. For example, India, Russia, let's say defense cooperation or trade agreement between India and USA. Right? These kind of things are relevant, are important for a simple reason. Listen to me carefully now. What has happened in the recent times is Pakistan on one side has signed an agreement with Saudi, right? Basically on the lines of NATO Article 5, where the defense agreement between both of these particular countries, basically which have been drawn on the lines of Article 5 of NATO, state that okay, now I'm all right. So basically state that if there is attack on one country, the other country will come in support of the right, let's say the other country. And it's not just between Pakistan and Saudi. The Pakistan country has also signed a similar, not the similar, but supply agreement, the arms agreement supply with the Libyan country, right? That is in Africa. Very recently, there is also news reports that similar agreement is being proposed between Bangladesh as well as Pakistan. So when you look at these kind of, let's say, maneuvers, and not to forget how close the current administration of Pakistan has come to, let's say, the current administration in USA, all these are cause of concerns. These are to be watched very closely by the government of India. And in the context of the trade, if you look at the trade, we expected this particular trade agreement with USA to be signed very soon. We expected that because, not to forget, India and USA trade relations are very important for us. USA is the largest trading partner for India. We have a trade surplus with USA, right? So we wanted to sign this agreement as soon as possible. But rather than that, right, we have been signing a smaller agreements, or let's say the agreements with smaller trading partners. For example, India, Oman. The bilateral trade is just around $10 billion. India, New Zealand, which has been signed very recently. The bilateral trade is very, very small, hardly around $5 billion. Right? So argument is simple. Yes, we have achieved or we have made certain gains in 2025 under foreign policy. But the expected gains were much larger compared to what we have been able to achieve. So this is in a nutshell how India's foreign policy has worked in the year 2025. Everybody is okay with the discussion? Now based on this, please take up this particular question for descriptive answer writing. India's foreign policy in 2025 reflects ambition but lacks consolidation. Examine this statement in the context of recent diplomatic engagements between India and other countries. A 15-mark question for 250 words. Now, in addition to this, here is, let's say a practice question for all of you. I presume that all of you have completed economics, right? Which means you should be able to answer this question. What is the correct answer to the question? Do let me know very quickly. Consider the following statements regarding generalized system of preferences. It is mandatory for the developed countries to provide this to developing countries under WTO regulations. Once the GSP status is issued, it cannot be withdrawn. USA is the only country to have provided the GSP status to India. How many of the statements are true? 7007 PK says option D. What about others? Solve it quickly. Shubman Kumar says no, EU also. Let's start. It is mandatory for the developed countries. Underline the term mandatory. Is it mandatory for the developed countries under WTO to provide the GSP status? No. It is voluntary. Please remember, it is voluntary, not mandatory. First one, incorrect. Once the GSP status is issued, it cannot be withdrawn. The best example is USA, India. USA has withdrawn the GSP status given to India. USA is the only country to have provided the GSP status to India according to the Ministry of External Affairs and Ministry of Commerce websites. there are around 14 countries which have provided the GSP status to India. So third one is also incorrect. All the three statements are incorrect. Right option for the question will be option D here. Let me go to the next article. Fragile attractiveness. FDI investments in India. Now, in recent times, there has been a lot of discussion in the context of inflow as well as outflow of FDI. There are two technical terms. Please remember both of them. One is gross FDI and the second one is the net FDI. One is gross FDI, second one is net FDI. What is the basic difference? Gross FDI simply takes into consideration how much FDI, foreign direct investment, comes into India. How much foreign investment, that is foreign direct investment, comes into India. Whereas a net FDI will adjust the total inflow of FDI with outflow of FDI. Is everybody okay? The inflow of FDI will be adjusted with outflow of FDI. And remember this, the outflow of FDI is generally considered in this way. That is, Indian companies investing abroad. Indian companies investing outside India. That is, an Indian company will invest in manufacturing facility, let's say, in Britain. That is, right, one component. Second component is repatriation. Remember this, repatriation. What is the meaning of a repatriation? Let's say a foreign company has invested in India. Now, they want to sell this particular company, take the money and move out of India. Is everybody able to understand this? Right, so Indian companies investing outside India as well as repatriation. Both of these essentially are considered in calculation of net FDI. Now, why should you understand both of them? According to the recent RBI report, the net FDI for the last 3 months, has become negative. The net FDI for the last 3 months has become negative. What do you mean by last 3 months? From April to July. From April to July, the net FDI was a positive $10.6 billion. $10.6 billion. And now, if you take April to, right, October, if you calculate for April to October, this has come down to around $6.2 billion. You don't have to mug up the numbers, but understand. From April to July, it is more than $10.6 billion. That is, outflow is greater compared to inflow by, the inflow is greater compared to outflow by $10 billion. But if you take April to October, suddenly the overall inflow is higher by $6 billion. How is that possible? It is possible because for the month of August, September and October, for the month of August, September, October, the outflow was greater compared to inflow. As a result of this, the overall data for the month April to October is lower. It is lesser and it has fallen down to $6 billion. Now, what should be the concern? Why should you be concerned about it? Reason is, one, Government of India has implemented multiple reforms. You can list out huge number of reforms. For example, Government of India has reduced corporate taxes. Correct? Government of India has reduced corporate taxes. Earlier, the flat rate of corporate tax was 30%. It has been reduced to 22% for a lot of these particular companies. The Government of India has rationalized goods and services tax. The Government of India has made certain changes in income taxes so that the amount of money that is available to the individuals to spend in the market increases. This will promote market production, supply and activity of the companies. So, lot of reforms have been implemented by the Government of India, including PLI, Make in India, right, etc., in order to attract investments in India. One of the objectives is in order to attract investments in India, that is in the form of foreign direct investment. Now the question is, why is the FDI, rather than coming in a lot higher number, why the number itself is smaller, that is inflow of FDI is not satisfactory, because the government of India, mind you, the government of India has a target of having a FDI of $100 billion every year. This is a target set up by the government. One, inflow of FDI is not satisfactory. And second, why is there a higher outflow? Why is there a higher outflow? That is a concern. Now, some of you will simply say, sir, higher outflow could happen because a lot of Indian companies are investing outside India. I know a lot of you will be thinking, sir, it can happen because Indian companies are investing outside India. So the question is, why are they not willing to invest in India? Because the finance minister, the minister for commerce and trade repeatedly have been saying government of India has already implemented reforms. Now it is the duty of the companies to invest in India. So question is, why are they not investing then? Why are they taking the money out of India? And second one is, there is a concern, like I said earlier, regarding the uncertainty regarding India-USA relations. India-USA bilateral relations. Because I said, USA is the largest trading partner for us. And if there is no policy that is announced, a trade policy, very quickly if it is not announced or the agreement is not announced between India and USA, it is expected that the outflow of the foreign investment will continue in India. Because have a look at the data. The announcement of tariff by the president of USA was done in the month of July. Right, July 4th. Right, that was the date where they called it as a Liberation Day and came out with the policies of tariffs. And later, again, more tariffs were announced on India's exports. And from the month of August itself, August, September, October, have a look at this. There is a net outflow, or there is, right, more outflow of foreign investments from India compared to inflow. So many of the experts are linking this negative FDI or negative net FDI to the tariff announcement done by the US administration. Is everybody able to understand the argument here? So what has to be done? The government of India has to take more measures. The government of India has to become proactive now. If you want to attract FDI, make it much more easier to conduct business. Make it easier to export from India. Sign as soon as possible, try to enter into one or the other form of agreement with USA so that there is some certainty regarding the tariffs announced by the US administration. And the tariffs, for example, the additional 25% tariffs has been announced because of Russian crude oil import. We have reduced the crude oil imports, right? Show it to the US administration, get that particular 25% withdrawn. Is everybody able to understand the argument here? So this is the article associated with FDI investments in India. Can I go forward? Please do let me know. Those who are asking questions from the first article, please hold on to your questions. I'll address your questions at the end of the session. Okay. Now quickly solve this particular MCQ. Fast. Solve the MCQ. Consider the following statements regarding the foreign direct investment. Inflow of FDI increases India's external debt. Outward FDI is considered as a capital account transaction in the balance of payments. Profits reinvested by a foreign company operating in India is counted as inward FDI. I'm right, let's say quite sure a lot of you will get stuck up with the third statement. Right? A lot of you will get stuck up with the third statement. Let's start. Inflow of FDI increases India's external debt? No, because it is mainly in the form of equity investments, not basically giving loans, right? Mainly in the form of equity. Outward FDI is considered as a capital account transaction in the balance of payments? Yes. Yes, outward FDI is, whether it is inward FDI or outward FDI, it is part of the capital account transaction. Okay. Third one, profits reinvested by a foreign company operating in India is counted as inward FDI. Slightly technical statement, but the statement is correct. Please make a note of it. It is correct. The profits which are generated by foreign companies operating in India, if they invest that in India, I repeat, the profits generated by foreign companies operating in India, and if they invest that in India, RBI counts this as part of inward FDI. Third statement is correct. Right option is option B. Only two of the statements are true. Okay. Now, let me go forward. Very important current affairs article. Doping menace in India. Why have I taken up this article? Listen to me carefully. In recent months or in recent time, that is in this month itself, there have been certain very important announcements. The government of India announced that India will be hosting Commonwealth Games. All of you heard of this? India will be hosting the 2030 Commonwealth Games. And not just that, India also has plans to bid for 2036 Olympics. 2036 Olympics. If this is happening on one side, on the other side, there is a concerning news. According to the latest report published by WADA, World Anti-Doping Authority. World Anti-Doping Authority. The list was published in the month of December itself. India is the top country in terms of the doping cases. India is the first ranked for the third consecutive year, by the way. India is ranked first for the third consecutive year in terms of the doping cases. How much? According to the authorities, that is NADA, National Anti-Doping Authority, more than 7,000 tests were conducted, and the doping cases were found in around 3.6% of them. 3.6% of them. Some of you will look at the 3.6% and basically say, sir, it's a very small number. No, it's a very large number. For example, a lot of you will be interested about China, right? Immediately, a lot of you would have thought, sir, are we performing better or worse than China? Here is the data for China. In China, what is the total number of tests which were conducted? In China, the total number of tests which was conducted was more than 24,000. More than 24,000. And what was the number of cases as a percentage? Doping cases, 0.2%. 0.2%. So in India, first and foremost, listen to me carefully. In India, the first and foremost, the number of tests which were conducted are lesser. And the number of cases where doping has been found out, where athletes have been caught, is very high. So that is a cause of concern. And this was in fact flagged by the Olympic Association. Very recently during the meetings, they raised this particular issue and stated that if you want to host 2036 Olympics, then you better bring this doping cases under control. Bring down the doping cases. Otherwise, it will become very difficult for you to bid for hosting the Olympics. So what are the reasons? What can be done in the coming days? Why people dope? Why people or the athletes take steroids? Reasons are very simple. Point number one, in lot of cases, it has been seen that athletes either take it willingly, they know the repercussions, they know what is the impact of these particular drugs, but even then they take these particular steroids, drugs, etc., which are banned from consumption. Especially for these particular athletes, it is banned for consumption because it is a performance enhancement drug. So the reason it is cited is they are only focused on getting the win, getting the medal, winning at national level or international level. They are only focused on getting that particular cash prize, etc. So their focus is on winning. Whether it is done in the right way or wrong way, they are least bothered about it. That's the first reason. Second reason, it is stated that a lot of these athletes come from poor background. A lot of them come from poverty. And the only way they think they can come out of poverty is by doping, getting medal, getting a podium finish, and then getting a government job. Simple. Getting a government job. Because in lot of these particular cases, governments provide scholarships, government provide the government jobs. So for a lot of people who come from poor background, they think this is the only way to come out of poverty. Anyways, I'm not going to become, let's say, the participant in Olympics, etc. So let me dope let me win certain, right, let's say medals at the national level, I'll win scholarship, I'll get a government job, right? Lot of times this is the reason, right? And the third reason, in many of the cases, the athletes don't understand in the sense, a lot of these people, I'm not saying all of them, a lot of these people, because they're too much focused on, right, let's say the games or the sports, they do not understand, they don't have that kind of a knowledge to understand the repercussion of consuming this kind of a performance enhancement drug. They don't understand, they do not have the knowledge. And right, basically because it is provided by a coach, because the coaches are also very interested in this. Imagine, right, there is a particular coach who's, right, let's say candidate, the person whom this person has coached will win a Olympic medal. Automatically the number of students that will enroll into his institution under him will suddenly balloon. The coach will start charging lot of fees, etc. The coaches will provide the performance enhancing drug, and the candidate or the, right, let's say athlete will end up doping, right? So these are some of the reasons which have been cited as to the reasons why the athletes in India in lot of cases, right, go for doping. Now the concern is simple. If the doping cases keep on increasing, if athletes keep on taking these particular steroids, it will not only hurt India's image, it will also hurt their long-term performance. That is, there are health complications in the later stage. So what is the solution? The NADA, National Anti-Doping Authority, already has stated that they have launched an app. They have launched an app, right? Using the app, the athletes can track what is allowed, what is not allowed, what kind of drugs are allowed, what is prohibited, etc. That is first one, right? So app. Second one is essentially testing. Understand this, testing. Right now, the lacunae in terms of testing is the testing is done at national level games. Right? The testing is done at national level games. For example, very recently, Khelo India Games were held. Anybody can tell me in which state the Khelo India Games were held this year? Because very interesting thing happened during the Khelo India Games. In which place the Khelo India Games were conducted very recently? Bihar. Anybody knows the answer? Please do let me know. So during the recent Khelo India edition, very interesting thing was observed. That is, there was a news which spread that NADA authorities, National Anti-Doping Authority, the officials were present in the location, and they would conduct a doping test on the athletes which are participating in these particular games. Now, once this particular news spread, a lot of the athletes who came to the arena did not participate. They simply ran away. They simply vanished. In lot of these particular games, hardly one or two individuals participated and they won the medals. Reason is, a lot of these athletes wanted to escape the eyes of the NADA authorities. Is everybody able to understand? Right? So these are some of the concerns. Now, what should be done in the coming days? Testing has to be ramped up. Simple. Increase the testing. The only way most of the experts argue you can get it down, that is, right, let's say the cases of doping should be brought down, is by increasing the testing. Not just at the national level games, bring it at the state level, bring it even at the district level. Right? Increase the number of the testing that you do. Yes, it will lead to a lot of expenditure, but you will create a fear amongst the athletes who are thinking of doping. It will create a fear, because right now it is done only at the national level games. Nothing at the state as well as the district. Include and increase the testing done at all these levels. Automatically the instances of athletes consuming these kind of drugs because of the fear of the testing will go down. Right? So these are certain important points associated with the doping menace that you need to understand in the context of India. So some of you have given the answer. Where was the recent Khelo India Games held? It was in Rajasthan. It was in Rajasthan, by the way. Okay, now this is a MCQ. Let's solve the MCQ. Consider the following statements. NADA is a statutory authority functioning under the Ministry of Youth and Sports. This particular statement is true. I'm not asking you to solve it because the statements are slightly difficult. NADA is a statutory authority. Listen to me very carefully. NADA initially, National Anti-Doping Authority, was set up as a society. It was set up as a society back in the year 2005. Later, in the year 2022, the government of India passed a bill, National Anti-Doping Act. National Anti-Doping Act. And under this particular National Anti-Doping Act, NADA has been authorized, or NADA has been recognized. So it is a statutory authority functioning under the Ministry of Youth and Sports. Yes, statement 1 is correct. India is a signatory of the UNESCO International Convention Against Doping in Sport. Important statement, please remember, statement is correct. Right? The important points are, the UNESCO International Convention Against Doping in Sport is an international convention. International convention, please understand. International convention which has introduced uniform guidelines regarding controlling doping in all the kinds of sports. So the second statement is true. It was introduced back in the year 2005. India ratified this particular convention in the year 2007. India ratified this in the year 2007. So both the statements are true. Right option for the question will be option C, both of them. Okay. Everybody is okay? Can I move on to the next article? Right. Something very important is happening in this particular region. Right. USA and Venezuela. USA and Venezuela. What is happening? Right. Please have a look at the map first. Please have a look at the map. Question can be asked on the mapping. Right. These are the two countries, United States of America, and here is Venezuela. Right. Americas, part of Americas, North America and South America. Okay. So these are the two countries, right, which have come very close to, right, a war, or which have come very close to a conflict now. What is the issue? Issue is very simple. The argument of the government of USA is that the current administration in Venezuela, basically is promoting the export, that is export in illegal way, the export of drugs into USA. Right? Their argument is the current president of USA, Mr. Nicolas Maduro, is the head of, right, these particular drug cartels which are operating, producing the drugs in Venezuela, and they are bringing these particular drugs through the sea route, and they are distributing that particular drugs in the USA mainland. Right? And that is the precise reason why the USA very recently has mobilized a lot of, right, let's say forces. They have mobilized a lot of jets, lot of, right, vessels, etc., which are located in this particular region now. And they have basically started putting pressure on the administration of Venezuela. They want Mr. Nicolas Maduro to exit. They want the, right, Maduro administration, that is the president, to, right, basically leave the administration. But right now that particular condition has not been accepted by the president of Venezuela, and that's a reason lot of restriction in terms of trade have been imposed by the US administration here. What is the argument? Listen to me carefully. They have imposed a kind of sanctions. I'm saying kind of sanctions because generally whenever you talk about sanctions, these are authorized by the United Nations, that is UN Security Council. But apart from the United Nations announcing these kind of sanctions, very often you will see USA administration announcing these kind of sanctions. Sanctions, for example, in the context of, let's say, the banks of Russia not being allowed to use SWIFT. Many of these particular shipping companies not being allowed, right, to trade or to export Russian oil to other countries. And the same kind of sanctions are being used by the USA authorities to basically cut the supply of the money to the authority or the administration in Venezuela. Because Venezuela houses one of the largest crude oil reserves. And 90% of the total revenue generated by the administration or the government in the Venezuela comes because of the crude oil exports. More than 90%, by the way. So what the administration of USA is doing right now, whatever tankers, whatever vessels or the ships that are moving in this particular region, if the US administration suspects that they are moving the Venezuelan oil, right? If they are basically supplying the crude oil from Venezuela, they are holding these particular vessels now, right? Recently, you must have seen in the YouTube, right? They are basically the Marines coming onto the vessels, right? Taking these particular vessels to other regions, etc. So these are certain things that are being conducted by the USA administration, right? In this particular region. In addition to this, please remember this: the current administration of USA has a bounty on, right, Mr. Nicolas Maduro, has a reward announced on Mr. Nicolas Maduro. That is the first one. Second one, it uses multiple tactics in order to ensure no company will supply the vessels for shipping of the crude oil. It will target these particular companies, shipping companies. It will target the ports. It will target individuals who are present, who are key, right, players in all of this. For example, whenever the crude oil has to be exported using, right, let's say a ship, the ships require insurance. Simple. The ships require insurance. Multiple global companies will provide insurance to these particular, right, let's say vessels. But in order to get the insurance done, there will be certain other institutions which will certify. Look at this. There are other companies which will certify that it is safer to transport crude oil using these particular ships. Once the certificate is issued, the insurance company will provide insurance to these shipping vessels. In recent times, the tactics of the USA administration is to simply target these companies. Target the companies which will provide insurance, the companies which will provide, right, the certificate certifying that it is safer to use these ships, etc. And when these institutions withdraw, they will basically say, I'm not going to provide any kind of a, let's say, certificate, etc. Insurance will not be provided to these particular vessels. And if the insurance is not there, it becomes very costly as well as difficult to export or import crude oil using the shipping vessels. Is everybody able to understand? So these kind of tactics are being used by the administration of USA in order to put a control, chokehold on, right, let's say the revenues that are generated by the Venezuelan administration by exporting crude oil. So these are certain things which have been discussed in the article. Okay, let's go forward. Everybody is okay with the discussion? Let's go forward. Next important article, the BNP leader returns home. The leader here is basically Mr. Tariq Rahman, who is the son of the former Prime Minister Khalida Zia, who is undergoing treatment in Bangladesh right now. Why is this article important for you? Why should you focus on this article? Reasons are simple. Like I've said earlier, India-Bangladesh relations in the last 1 year have taken a hit. After ousting of the former Prime Minister, there is an interim government which is headed by Mr. Mohammad Yunus. There have been various statements which have been issued by the head of the interim government or the caretaker government, which are basically affecting, which are basically reducing the relations between India as well as Bangladesh. And the relations which were much better under the previous administration have taken a hit. And very recently, with lynching as well as burning of a Hindu in Bangladesh, there are multiple concerns which have been raised by the Indian government regarding the protection of minorities in Bangladesh. Although the government in Bangladesh took a stand and criticized, said it is illegal, we do not support all of these activities. Yesterday, there was one more report of another Hindu being lynched, killed in Bangladesh. Now, when you look at all of this, the return of the BNP leader is important. Why? This particular person, that is Mr. Tariq Rahman, is currently, right, the acting chairman of the Bangladesh National Party, BNP. He was in exile. For the last 17 years, he stayed in the Britain, and from there, he was acting as the chairman. Right? He was overseeing the functions and the activities of the Bangladesh National Party. The reason why he escaped was because of the military leadership earlier, as well as the administration under the Awami League, right, which targeted multiple cases of corruption, etc., were filed against him. Right, there were multiple, orders which were issued, and there were also allegations of torture, right, against or torture being conducted on this particular person. So he went into exile. Now he has come back. And during his speech, once he came back, he gave a speech yesterday. He stated that Bangladesh is a country where people from the hills, people from the low lying regions, Hindus, Muslims, Christians, etc., are living. And he stated that he has a plan. He has a plan to stabilize the country. He has the plan for Bangladesh. In that particular context, the return of the BNP leader becomes very important. Point number one. Point number two, in the earlier administration, right, how were the relations between India as well as Bangladesh when BNP formed the government earlier, when Khalida Zia was the prime minister? There are multiple instances where, right, let's say statements were given, certain actions were taken by the BNP government representatives, which had affected negatively the relations between India and Bangladesh. But listen to me very carefully. Currently, with the elections to be conducted in the month of February in Bangladesh, it is almost certain that this candidate or this particular person is going to be the next prime minister. The government of India basically now says it is expecting that the relations between both of the countries will become better, will improve. Reason is twofold. One, earlier, when the Bangladesh National Party had formed the government, it had formed with the coalition with Jamaat-e-Islami. Jamaat-e-Islami, which is, right, basically a fringe element, right, very, very audacious, very fringe element, extreme element. Because of, right, let's say this coalition partner, right, multiple statements, multiple actions were taken which had a negative impact on interest of India. Now, right, recently BNP leadership has announced that it has cut off all the ties with Jamaat-e-Islami and they are going to contest the elections individually. That is the first one. And second one, as of now, despite all that is happening in Bangladesh, no highest leadership within the BNP has criticized policies of government of India, or it has stated anything against India as of now. Whereas if you look at the caretaker government, anything that happens in Bangladesh, they basically point the fingers towards India and say India is responsible for it. Right? So these are some of the things that you need to keep in mind in the context of, right, Mr. Tariq Rahman returning to Bangladesh after exile of 17 years. Done? Next article, simple factual information. NATGRID is linked to National Population Register, NPR. Now, what are the important points? In one of the sessions that I've taken earlier, I said NATGRID, which was a result of the terrorist attack, right, which was set up as a result of the terrorist attack in India, it has started operating from the year 2024. It is accessible, it is in operation since 2024. But until recently, the access to NATGRID was available only to the intelligence agencies. But this year, the access to the NATGRID has been given to even the police forces, the state police forces. Above certain rank, the access has been provided. This was the point that we discussed in one of my earlier sessions. Now, Government of India simply says NATGRID will be linked, connected to National Population Register, NPR. What is the importance of this? In the National Population Register, all the data of Indian residents will be collected and stored. The NPR for the first time was conducted back in the year 2010 and it was updated in 2015. It was updated in 2015. Right, so NPR is also one set of database which has a lot of data sets associated with the residents residing in India. This particular data set has been divided into three layers, right? The sensitive, highly sensitive and non-sensitive. So according to the requirement, the access will be provided to the agencies to get, right, let's say certain data sets from the NPR. What is the importance of this? If you're thinking, what is the importance of this? Imagine there is one suspect. You want to get information regarding the suspect. It could be driving license. It could be, right, let's say KYC verification. It could be the family relatives, etc. All of this data set is now easily accessible through the NATGRID. In fact, there were also concerns raised regarding the privacy matters. Now, if you give access to the police regarding, right, who are my relatives, what is my Aadhaar number, and all my details, example, my license, etc., there is always a concern associated with the privacy matters. That's the reason the government simply says, simply you can't get access to whatever you want. There will be a request raised. All the requests will be registered, and only certain officials, police officials above the IPS rank will be given access, right, to this particular data set. Right, so these are certain important points now. Right, based on this, I've given an MCQ. Please solve the MCQ and tell me the answer. Because the NPR, right, all of this is there in the newspaper multiple times. Please solve the question and tell me the answer. NPR is conducted by the Office of Registrar General of India, RGI. The RGI functions under the Ministry of Defense. It is also responsible for conducting census and registration of births and deaths. How many of the statements are true? Let me know. NPR is conducted by the Office of Registrar General of India. Yes, first statement is true. The RGI functions under the Ministry of Defense, not under the Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Home Affairs. Ministry of Home Affairs. Second one is incorrect. It is also responsible for conducting census and registration of births and deaths. Yes. Right, third statement is also true. Out of three, two of them are correct. Right option for the question will be option B. Only two of them are correct. Now, next article. Constitution in Santhali. Right, a lot of you who have seen the newspaper would have missed the next two important articles. This is the first one. But I'm unhappy. Right? Let me tell you very frankly, I'm unhappy with whatever Hindu has covered. What the Hindu article simply says, the President of India has released the Constitution of India now in the Santhali language. Okay, it is in the Santhali language. In addition to this, the article simply says the language is spoken by a lot of tribals which are residing in the four states: Odisha, West Bengal, Bihar, and Jharkhand. This is the second point of information. There is also one point of information. The Santhali language is written in the Old Chiki script. Old Chiki script. These are the 3 points. 1, 2, and 3. Right? Lot of you who are reading on your own will look at only 3 points. But I feel lot of important points associated with this article were omitted, were not given in the Hindu newspaper. Let me prove it to you. Look at the question. Look at the question. Consider the following statements. Santhali is included in the 8th schedule of Indian Constitution. 2025 marks the centenary year for the Old Chiki script. If you read this particular article, you will not get the complete information. But just out of curiosity, I went to PIB website. All of you, please look at the same article as published yesterday in the PIB, Press Information Bureau. You will see that in addition to whatever information is given in Hindu, lot of other important information was given in the PIB, which was not given in the Hindu newspaper. For example, please look at this statement. The president said, this year we are celebrating the centenary year of Old Chiki script. Centenary year basically means the Old Chiki script was formulated back in the year 1925. It was prepared for the first time, created in 1925. And this was created by Pandit Raghunath Murmu. Pandit Raghunath Murmu. Please remember all of these particular points. This is an important point. And the second point that I want you to make a note, and those who are worried, sir, how do I get the PPT, etc., don't worry, don't have to write it down. Once the session is over, download the PPT. The PPT will be uploaded in the Telegram channel. The Santhali language, which was included in the 8th schedule of the Constitution of India with the passage of 92nd Constitutional Amendment Act 2003. This is another very, very important point. Santhali is included in the 8th schedule of the Indian Constitution. And how many languages are included in the 8th schedule of the Indian Constitution? 22 languages. 22 languages. Is everybody okay with these particular points? In addition to whatever is given in the Hindu newspaper, which I feel are very generic points. Santhali language, Old Chiki script, and the 4 states where this language is spoken. But in addition to that, I feel these are the most important points. Right, the Santhali Old Chiki script is prepared or was created by Pandit Raghunath Murmu, and we are celebrating this year. We are celebrating 100 years, centenary celebrations. In fact, the state government of Odisha has announced year-long celebrations. For this purpose, year-long celebrations have been announced. In addition to that, 8th schedule, right, the 92nd Constitutional Amendment Act 2003 and 22 languages. Please remember all of these. Questions can be asked in the prelims examination. Now look at the question. You'll be able to solve it very easily. Santhali is included in the 8th schedule of the Indian Constitution. Yes, statement is correct. 2025 marks the centenary year of Old Chiki script. Yes, the statement is correct. Both of them are correct. Right option is option C. Now one more article. The Food Safety and Standards Authority of India has barred food firms from terming herbal infusions tea. Right? This is important. A lot of you will ignore this, but this is important. Why? In the market, you will be able to purchase a lot of varieties of tea. Right? The original, according to FSSAI guidelines, the tea, what can you call it as a tea? It simply means any right product which is there in the market which has been made using right the leaves of Camellia sinensis. Camellia sinensis. Remember this. This can be asked in the prelims. Any formulation in the market which has right the products from Camellia sinensis. It could be right green tea. It could be white tea. It could be right the black tea. It could be oolong tea. Right, these particular 4 products essentially have the component of Camellia sinensis plant. The FSSAI simply says only these can have the suffix of tea. Only these can have suffix of tea. In the market, if you check, you will get right chamomile tea. You will get right the what is that the plant-based teas, right? Different types of teas, hibiscus tea, etc. What FSSAI simply says is it is misbranding, right? That cannot be called as tea. Henceforth, right? This is the order which has been issued by FSSAI. Henceforth, these kind of products which are marketed in the e-commerce website or normally in the shops, etc., they cannot have the name or the word tea on the packaging, right? This particular order has been issued by the Food Safety Standards Authority of India. Now, in the context of this, what is the importance? Tea initially back in the 1830s was introduced by Britishers in India. Can be asked in the prelims. Please remember all of this. Was introduced by Britishers in India. Their argument was the monopoly over the production of tea. Majority of it comes from China. So we don't want to be dependent on them. Let's produce right some of this particular tea in India. Right. So that is the reason why the tea plantation was done in India. This is point number 1. Point number 2. On what basis? Is there any difference in the chemical composition? If that question is asked, please remember this. The products, actual products, according to the definition of FSSAI, the actual products of tea will have mainly 2 chemical components. One is caffeine. And I know a lot of you will be thinking, sir, caffeine is present only in coffee. Yes, in coffee as well as tea. But in addition to this, there is also a protein which is present here, right? There is a protein which is present here, right? That is the precise reason why this particular component of tea will be classified as a tea, and other products, hibiscus tea, right, chamomile tea, etc., these will not be allowed to be having a name of tea henceforth in the packaged product. Is everybody okay? Can I move on to the next one now? Please do let me know. Right, and those who are asking, sir, what is this particular protein that you are talking about? L-theanine. L-theanine. It is a type of a amino acid. L-theanine, right? Basically, it provides a distinct chemical characteristic to tea. Caffeine plus L-theanine. When you look at this composition in other types of tea, chamomile tea or hibiscus tea, etc., you will not find it. That is basically the difference. Remember, all of these particular points can be asked in the prelims examination. And final article for today, 915 Maharashtra villages back dignified life for widows. Dignified life for widows. It is important, right? Reason being, you must have seen in certain places, not in all the places, especially in urban areas, this particular practice has been done away. Once the husband dies, right? Once the husband dies, the wife of the husband will be brought in the public, right? The bangles are broken, right? The vermilion is erased, etc. A lot of humiliation is felt by the women at that point of time. Many of the districts or many of the villages in Maharashtra now have basically adopted approach. They have introduced different kinds of schemes here. For example, if at all it is relevant in the mains examination, you can write it Navachetana program. There is a Navachetana program that is being implemented across multiple Zilla Parishads in Nashik. Nashik is basically Maharashtra. Navachetana program or Haldi Kumkum program, etc. Haldi Kumkum program. These kind of programs are being implemented where the participants are essentially signing. In some cases, they are signing the bonds, right? They're signing the bonds and taking an oath stating that all these kind of practices which do not have any kind of a scientific argument, which basically humiliate women upon the death of the husband, etc., these kind of practices would be discontinued in these particular regions. So for social issues, GS paper 1, you can quote this as a case study, right, which will help in improving the livelihood or improving the status or protecting the status of the women even after the death of the husband. Done? Right, so these are various important articles. Last one article, just for sake of information, have a look at this. Indian Army now has a relaxed social media policy. It has allowed passive participation, not active participation, passive participation. What do you mean by passive participation here? From 2020, strict guidelines were imposed by Indian Army, stating that the soldiers, the Indian Army personnel will not be allowed to use platform X. Earlier it was a different name, Twitter, but right now X. They will not be allowed to use platform X. They will not be allowed to use Instagram, etc. The reason that was cited by the army leadership was because the soldiers will start using, or the army personnel will start using these kind of platform, they might give away certain military secrets. They might be honey trapped, etc. So now the army leadership or the Indian Army has relaxed the social media policy. It states that you can use these platforms, right? For example, X you can use, Instagram you can use only to watch, only to observe. You cannot participate, in the sense you cannot post any content. You cannot reply to any messages. You cannot react to any post that is there in the these kind of platforms. So passive participation is allowed. In fact, in the case of another social media app, that is LinkedIn, in the context of LinkedIn, the army says that you can upload the documents, because LinkedIn is generally used for contacts, generating contracts, applying for jobs, etc. So for that particular purpose, LinkedIn can be used. So in this way, the social media policy to a certain extent has been relaxed. It will be tightly monitored, but compared to the earlier regulations which were brought in after 2020, now the relaxations have been provided by the Indian Army. Done? Right, so this is one update associated with the media policy. So these are the various articles, the concepts as well as the questions I wanted to discuss with you people in today's session. Anybody has any kind of questions, doubts, etc., please do let me know. Sir, I need your marathon economics video. I couldn't get it from Telegram channel. My dear, please go to or visit this particular same YouTube channel. Right, search in this particular channel, you will get the marathon session. Sir, why is India not returning ex-PM Sheikh Hasina despite the death sentence? There are multiple reasons. One prominent reason is India is worried whether the process that was followed, was it fair? Whether a fair, right, let's say, retrial will be conducted, whether she'll be treated in the human way, etc. That is the reason. Okay. Okay, that's it then. Is it sufficient for current affairs? My dear, more than sufficient. I've covered 10 plus articles in today's session. Yesterday also I covered 10. Tomorrow again I'll cover 10. Don't worry. So more than sufficient for both prelims as well as mains. Okay, so that's it from my side then. Take care. See you tomorrow sharp at 10 a.m. If you have liked the discussion, hit the like button. If you are yet to join our YouTube channel, kindly do it right now. Thank you. Take care. See you tomorrow.